What's going on, guitar players? I have an interesting lesson for you today regarding strumming. And I think strumming is sort of the overlooked second sibling of guitar playing because there's so much emphasis put on the neck and your fretting and how to do the open chords, then the bar chords, and that sort of thing. And strumming, in my mind, gets sort of a bad glance over by guitar instructors. So what I'm doing is putting together a quick video. Well, hopefully quick. I tend to speak a lot. But this is stuff that worked for me when trying to break down strumming. So some of these things might sound a little bit familiar. Some of them might sound really far out there and weird. So what you can do is kind of cherry pick and go through and see what might actually help you in your own strumming. So basically, I was frustrated because I'd learned a guitar and I was getting the fretting hand down pretty well, but was having a heck of a time on the strumming. What would happen is it would sound like that, very loud and clangy and clunky, and the guitar pick would fly to my hand. There was absolutely no rhythm to it, and I was making zero progress at all. So what I kind of did in my mind was break strumming down to different discrete steps and then figured out how I could improve on those steps. And this is kind of what I came up with. I'm going to save the weird one for the last. And this was actually the one that probably helped make the most progress regarding my strumming. But just to keep you interested, I'm going to add the one at the end. But here we go. Probably the very first thing that's important regarding strumming is picking out your pick. Keep in mind there are tens of thousands of different kinds of picks, and I've just got a couple here. There's thin ones and thick ones, and large ones, oversized ones, and that kind of thing. I would buy yourself a variety of picks because the type of pick you use is going to make a big difference in your strumming. And what I would find is the thinnest possible pick and the largest pick when you're starting to learn to strum, because what happens is if the pick is too rigid, it's going to fly out of your hand and also make the strings sound very clanky. But if you get a very thin pick and an oversized pick, it's going to help with your grip, and it's going to keep flexing on the strings, which will help with the sound. It won't make it sound too loud, and it'll kind of smoothen it out for you. So the types of picks, go out and buy a whole bunch. They're cheap. There's these giant triangular ones you can see, which are great for grip. So take a look at that. Next thing I want to think about is the grip. The grip for your pick and your picking hand is actually extremely important with regards to strumming. So think about taking your hand and just relaxing it like there's absolutely no bones in your hand at all. And just kind of shake it like this. Turn it upside down, and where your pointer finger, your index finger, and your thumb meet, that's the place where you're going to place your pick. And where the rest of your fingers sort of lie, that's where you're going to hold your fingers while you strum. So think about your index finger and your thumb meeting, and you want to place your pick directly in between those two places. Now think about your index finger being a vertical axis and your thumb being a horizontal axis, and where those two axes meet, that's exactly where you want to hold your pick. Now also with regards to the pick, you want your pick, when you're strumming, you want about half of the pick to be exposed below your thumb. Now if you're doing lead on electric guitar, that's a different thing. You want to choke up on the pick. But if you're strumming, you want to leave half of the pick exposed below your thumb because you need the flexibility there. The next thing with regards to pick holding, so you've got your posture correct. Make sure you're not holding the pick very hard at all. You actually want a very, very soft, barely holding the pick approach, because what's going to happen is if you hold the pick too hard, it's going to make a terrible clanging sound. It's going to send the pick flying across the room. It's going to break your strings and leave you frustrated. But if you just barely, barely, barely hold that pick, almost so it's going to fly to your hands, but not quite, that's kind of the pick grip that you want to aim for. So think about your Your relaxed hand, think about actually no bones being in that hand at all, almost like it's a rubber hand. And then where the index finger and thumb meet, that's where your pick goes. And the pick should be very, very loose and about half of the pick exposed. That's going to help you quite a lot. Next thing I want to think about is, or talk about, is the downward and upward strum. Don't think about your hand as going directly down across the sound hole. You want to think about your arm pivoting on an arc, going across the sound hole like this. So think about your elbow being a hinge, because it is, or actually think of it being as kind of a pivot. So you're going on a slight circular approach down across the sound hole and back up in that fashion. You also want to make sure that your arm, which is doing lots of the work, and your wrist are both extremely relaxed. I mean, think about just the most relaxed you've ever been. That arm should have no tension in it whatsoever, and the pick hand, again, should have absolutely no tension there whatsoever, just a rubber hand, except for the point where the fingers grip the pick. And that's going to help you tremendously, because relaxed is the way to go. The next tip I have for you is regards to strumming patterns. And when I was learning, there was lots of emphasis on down, up, down, up, down. And that was also a point of frustration for me, because it threw me off. The timing was, I couldn't get the up, down, and I was spending so much time thinking about it. And then I had a friend give me advice. He said, look, don't worry at all about strumming patterns up, down, up. Just worry about keeping a decent beat. Or if you want, just break it down into just downward strokes. And eventually, your body is just going to naturally start progressing, and the up and down patterns will just kind of kick in. And believe it or not, that's what happened with me. I was playing a lot of rhythm songs and not worrying too much about the patterns, and now when I pick up a song and play it, the up-down pattern just instantly goes into my head. So forget about the up-down patterns initially. Just think about getting a good down and up stroke. Let's talk about that stroke. Let's talk about the attack on the strings. You want to think about your pick not being perpendicular to the strings, not approaching it at a 45-degree angle. Well, I'm sorry. You want to think about your pick sweeping across the strings like a brush. So the pick is actually going down, the pointy part is pointing toward your head, and the fatter part of the pick is pointing down towards the floor as you go down, and it's sweeping just like a brush across the floor. So it's actually sweeping, and for me it's about a 45-degree angle down. And likewise, it sweeps back up. So what happens is, very quickly, you're sweeping down, your hand is pointing the pick at a 45-degree angle, and then as you go up, your hand kind of pivots, so the pick is now in the opposite direction, and it's coming at a 45-degree angle across the strings up. And I'm going to show you a neat trick for that in just a second, as to how to make your hand learn that, that switch very quickly and very easily. One more thing is to think about a pendulum going up and down across a clock. When a pendulum comes to the end of its movement, it doesn't just suddenly stop. It actually sort of slowly goes slower and slower, reaches what's called an apogee, and then it comes back across, slows down, slower, and stops. That's the kind of movement you want to do on your guitar. You don't want to go robotically up, down, like that. You want to go slow, faster, slow. And then back up. It's slow, faster, then slow. So think about the movement of a pendulum, and that's the one you want to kind of emulate. It's going to happen pretty fast, but in your mind, just think about how it's not stopping suddenly at the end of motion. It's slowly stopping and kind of letting gravity do the work. Let me talk a bit about gravity. Another trick for effective strumming, and again, these are things that worked for me, is to kind of let your hand almost fall downward versus forcing it downward. So I sort of let gravity help with the downstroke, and I kind of give my hand a push, and then I let it drop across the strings. So I'm not holding it in a very rigid fashion as I go down and up. I'm actually kind of just dropping the hand, giving it a push, and almost letting gravity do the work. And then when it gets to the end of range of movement of motion here, what happens is my elbow does a little bounce and does the reverse motion. Brings it back up across the strings, and again, lets gravity take hold, let it reach the top range of motion, and then drop again. So you're kind of throwing your hand down, letting your arm and your elbow bounce it back up, and that keeps the motion nice and fluid. So here's a demonstration. So my hand was not going mechanically up, down, up, down, up, down. It was coming to the end of motion, slowing down, stopping, and back up, then slowing down, stopping, almost like a rock being thrown up into the sky, and stopping, then letting gravity take hold again. Finally, we come to my last really weird and bizarre tip. And again, this is something that worked for me. I don't know why exactly I stumbled across this, but something you might consider when learning strumming is to play up on the neck. And bear with me, please, more experienced guitar players. I'll explain why we do this. On your guitar, you've got the place where the neck meets the body, and then you've got the neck itself. Well, what I noticed was I was having a heck of a time getting my hand to make that 45-degree angle across the strings and then change angles coming back up. But somehow I noticed that when I hit or play across the neck, as I hit the actual neck part, it would just kind of force my pick to go in that 45-degree angle motion. And then when I came back up, it would do the same thing. So I started playing up here on the neck. When I was learning strumming. And again, what that kind of helped me do was train this hand to flop in the right direction as it went across the strings. Another modification for that would be, versus playing on the neck, just go ahead and mute your strings. What you can do is gently put your hands across the strings on the neck and play that way. And that's going to kind of give you the same thing. It'll keep you from worrying about the sound of the guitar and the clunking, and let you just practice the rhythm over and over and over again without getting negative feedback from what's initially going to be a bad sound. So you can try muting your strings and then playing. And because you're kind of holding the strings in a rigid pattern, it's forcing your hand to kind of do that pivot where it brushes across the strings in a 45-degree angle going down and then 45-degree angle going up. So just to recap, these are my bizarre tips on learning strumming. First of all, vary your pick. Try large picks, small picks. You can get very, very thin picks. I would go with an oversized thin pick if you're having any problems at all. Next thing is your grip. Relax the hand. Figure out where the fingers naturally meet, and that's where you'll hold your pick. Next is making sure that half your pick is showing, so you get some flexibility there. If you're a lead guitarist, you choke up, but if you're strumming, you want half the pick showing. Next thing is make sure the wrist and the arm are working together. They're both extremely loose and limp. This arm here is kind of pivoting, and this wrist almost has no bones in it at all. It's like a rubber hand, except for where it holds the pick. Next tip is to forget all about strumming patterns initially, and just worry about getting a good, clean sound that's not too loud and not too soft. Next is making sure that the pick is attacking the strings. As it goes down, it's a 45-degree angle this way, and as it goes up, it's a 45-degree angle back up. Next one is think about the pendulum, gravity, helping to do the trick. Your hand does not stop suddenly at the end of motion, but actually times out slowly this way and times out slowly this way. And the last one is to practice by playing up on the neck, or if you want, just go ahead and mute your strings. And that's a great way to practice without getting the frustration of the clanging sound while you're learning strumming. So anyway, I hope you guys had fun with this lesson, and most important thing is always have fun playing guitar, because If you're not having fun, you're not going to practice. And we'll see you guys soon.